Hey guys, welcome back to another review. This time I wanted to evaluate some differences between the different prop firms. Who we're going to evaluate today is going to be not everyone's specific choice, and so if there's anyone that I've missed or anyone that you think is better than what I'm actually evaluating, then please do let me know, and I will try to do some more evaluations on them. But the ones I'm going to evaluate is Apex. Obviously, they've had some fundamental rule changes lately. Elite Trader Funding. I'm going to evaluate TopStep, and I'm going to evaluate Fast Track Trading. The reason behind that is really just to kind of get a sense on who do I think is the best prop firm, but more importantly, and I think this is a really key stat, is what trading style benefits what prop firm mostly. And so the result might shock you slightly because it's not typically who you would expect, but for me, just seems to work well, right? So let's dive in. Let's have a little look at what we can come up with here. So I've created a table, right, which hasn't got every single stat and every key statistic that we want to go over, but for me, it's the important points that matter. And so from the left-hand side here, I've got the item that we want to evaluate, and then I've got the elements that filter within each of those prop firms, right? So we're going to start with the evaluation phase. Now, first thing we've got to speak about is the fee, right? And so with Apex, all of these evaluations have been based on the 50k accounts. That's throughout each individual prop firm. So the first one, roughly for a 50k account, it's going to be, depending on when there's a deal on or whatever else, around $50 for the 50k account. Sometimes you can get that cheaper, depends on what the percentage reduction is of the sale. The second one is Elite Trader Funding. Their 50k accounts for the single phase, and it's very similar, right? It's $24.75. Then we have TopStep, who's $49, and I don't think you tend to see too many discounts with TopStep. And for fast track trading, there is no evaluation phase, so we've got nothing applicable there. So on pure face value, for the cheapest one, Elite Trader Funding gets that point there, right? Next down, we have the evaluation days. So how many days does it take you to pass an evaluation? Now, officially, Apex says 7 days. However, I haven't seen 7 days applied for at least maybe coming close to a year. So usually it's 1 day pass. So usually you can pass that within 1 day, and that's fantastic if that's the kind of trader you are. Elite Trader Funding is 5 days to pass an evaluation. So typically, if I've traded an Elite Trader Funding account and I've made profit on that, say 50k account in the first day, I'm just flipping for the rest of the days, which just means opening a trade, closing a trade instantly on a micro, and then that's kind of your 5 days in, and that will get you past. TopStep is a minimum of 2 trading days. That's because your trading target can't be more than 50% of the consistency. So there's a consistency rule applied with TopStep. Typically it takes 3 days though, because of the way in which it works. If you get, let's say it's a 50k account and your profit target is $3,000 as an example, well, day one you have to make $1,500, right? Now typically you're not going to get $1,500 bang on the nose. Sometimes it might be slightly over, sometimes it might be slightly less. So on day 2, if it's slightly less and then you go over, then your profit threshold needs to be increased a little bit. So that's why I typically say it takes you at least 3 days, really. I'm putting 2 days because mathematically it's possible to do it in 2 days. It's just very challenging to be able to get the exact number of $1,500 as a profit target. And then, of course, fast track trading doesn't have any evaluation minimum days at all because there is no evaluation. Simple objective, hit the profit target. Once you've hit that profit target, you've passed that evaluation phase. Do they have a daily loss limit? No, there's no daily loss limit applied to Apex Trader Funding. There is no daily loss limit applied on the evaluation for Elite Trader Funding, but there is a daily loss limit applied to TopStep. That means for a 50k account, as an example, based on the fact that these are all 50k accounts that we're evaluating, a $1,000 drawdown daily will cut you out of your account. It's never perfect, doesn't always hit $1,000. Sometimes it can go a little bit more actually, and then that leaves you with a bit more of a steeper hill to climb. So this is just about evaluating, right? I'm going to talk more. I just wanted to get this down because I want to talk more about who this benefits and how you should apply your strategy in the way you may trade it. For the funded phase, and again, this is just purely on a 50k account. So typically, Apex Trader Funding with the current discount codes, it's $85. Pay for that. It's a lifetime fee. Once you've paid that, there's no more. Or of course, there's an $85 per month. I think sometimes it can go as high as $130 per month. Just depends on the current discount rate. For Elite Trader Funding, you can either pay a one-off fee, which is a lifetime account for $285, or you can pay $80 a month if you want to just keep that consecutive. On TopStep, it's $149 flat fee. You pay that once and then that's your lifetime. There is no monthly option on that one. And then Fast Track Trading, this is the first time, because they don't have an evaluation phase, everything for them is just straight into the funded account. Their 50k accounts are $449 flat fee. You pay that for the lifetime of the account, and that's a one-off fee that you pay. Minimum trading days to get to a payout. So here's where Apex has just changed their rules. Theirs is now 8 days to get to a payout. They've also allowed the DCA rules back in. There's lots of videos that talk about their specific rules. I'm not going to talk too deeply about them here, but 8 days is now their minimum account before you can request a payout. For Elite Trader Funding, that's 10. For TopStep, it's 5. So you need 5 trading days in order to be able to take a payout. And then you need, for Fast Track Trading, there's different iterations depending on how many days you're trading. 5 being the minimum. You can, if you get to 10 days, you can request more payouts. There's a little bit of a kind of carrot dangle in there to maybe hope that you trade a bit longer so that you can get an extra payout. And the only one that has a minimum trade ratio, right? Consistency rule. Sorry, let me just pick this up first. So consistency rule. What is the consistency rule? That means that you can't have your total net profits for your account for that trading period can't be more than 30% of your biggest day. So that means that if you have like a huge, let me just get a calculator out as an example. Let's say on a 50k account, right? You have, let's say you have a $2,000 day on a 50k account. If I multiply that by 0.3, my apologies, hang on. Let's say you have a $2,000 day. Let's divide that by 0.3. That means that your account has to be $6,666 in profit in order for you to receive a payout. So if it's on a 50k account, you'd have to take your account to 56,666 point odd in order to receive a payout. So there's obviously a thing where you need to be mindful of how much you make. It's not a blocker, because ultimately you can still scale. You just need to know that in order for you to be able to take a payout, you've got to get over that consistency barrier. Now, as the account grows, the consistency rule kind of drops, because the bigger your account is, the more money you can make on a daily profile, on a daily basis. Elite Trader Funding doesn't have a consistency rule at all. They've taken theirs out. TopStep doesn't have a consistency rule. Again, you can trade and win as much money or make as much money as you possibly want. Fast Track Trading only has 20%, so that's a really difficult one. So on that same basis, on Fast Track Trading, if I had a $2,000 day and I divided that by 0.2, my account has to be $10,000 net positive in order for me to be able to request a payout. So there's like an early limitation function with Fast Track Trader that really inhibits traders to make consistent profits if they trade higher. Now, I particularly trade big size, right? I tend to push accounts, so that kind of early onset kind of puts me back a little bit. Well, what's this minimum trade ratio? And it's only applied to Elite Trader Funding. So with Elite Trader Funding, what we have here is the minimum trade ratio, and that's to say, let's say we have 10 days, right? So 10 days is a payout. And let's say on one of those days I made $3,000. If I times that by 0.23, my minimum trade days need to be 690. So for them 10 days, I need to make $690 as my minimum. If I have a day that I don't make that, then it doesn't matter. It just means that you have to accumulate 10 trading days in any period. There is no payout window per se. You just have to trade 10 days, and each of those 10 days, or 10 trading days rather, have to be above 690 in order for you to request a payout. Now that might strike you as that seems odd, but actually it depends on the type of trader you are. If you're a good trader who tends to scale in size, and your DCA or whatever else to kind of accumulate to a higher value, then that's an absolute possibility. I mean, I'm doing it right now with Elite Trader Fund, and that's just a segue, and I'll show you my profits in a second on how I've kind of worked the system and how I do it. So based on that, I mean, look, what does the total cost look like? I mean, we haven't talked about the buffer, right? So let's talk about the payout buffer, or whether. So if you're going to request a payout on any of these firms, these are the kind of key takeaways, right? So Apex has recently just released the updated version of what they call the buffer, or the safety net, right? So that means now, let's say you make, let's do some numbers, right? On a 50k account, you have to make 2,600 usually in the previous way to request a payout. Now if you take $2,000 from that, you're left with $600 as a buffer. That now can't be the case, right? So now we have to think, well, what does that mean? So realistically, you have to have the minimum safety net, which was originally going to be 2,600. You would have to make as a minimum before you actually take. So if you took $3,000, if you made $3,000 on Apex, as an example, and you tried to take $2,000 off that, it doesn't work, right? You need this number needed to be $2,600. The new change has put a negative 500. So what does that mean in terms of the maximum you can make, or the minimum you can make in order to be able to request a $2,000 payout? Well, it's essentially going to be, let's say if we make 4,500, we can take 500 off that drawdown. So the drawdown is now actually 2,000, so it'll be 2,100, right? So you would have to make, so when you take a withdrawal, your remaining balance has to be a minimum of 2,100. So that means realistically, in order to take a $2,000 payout, you need to be able to make 4,100 minus 2,000, which is what was the typical payout on a 50k account, to leave that 2,100. So what they're basically saying is, we'll allow you to take $500 out of your buffer that makes that value come to pass. Not many people will like that. That's a big change for Apex, I've got to say. But it is what it is, right? You know, the difference is the cost of their accounts is cheap. But you've got to push the account a bit further in order to be able to take that payout. Now, you can still take lower payouts, right? I think the minimum you can take is a $200 payout. So, because there's no payout window, realistically, you're just taking 8 trading days, taking whatever payout you've got available at that time, leaving your 2,100 in, and then doing another 8 trading days. That's the way I think you're probably best thinking about it, rather than, I've got to push this to $4,100 in order to be able to take that $2,000 payout. If you just trade it the way you normally trade it and try to scale and build on that, then you just take whatever you can from that until such time that you get past the payout cap, which I think is 6 payouts before you can do that with Apex. Now, what about next? So moving on to Elite Trader Funding, it's the account drawdown plus $100. So effectively, on a 50k account, let's say that might be, I don't know, $2,500 plus the 600 plus the additional 100 is 2,600. So as long as as long as your safety net is in play, it doesn't have the benefit of the $500 drawdown, but it's still there, right? You've got to have that buffer. You can't go into that negative equity on that. And I guess the benefits on that is, when you take a withdrawal, you're starting with a good balance. Do you know what I mean? So it's not, people will take it as a negative, but the people who take it as a negative aren't seeing the longevity of the contract. I mean, going from $600 left in your account, it's a tall mountain to climb straight away. You're massively against any kind of drawdown, because ultimately you're not going to progress well with that, are you? So don't see it as a negative. see it as a positive as to why they are trying to progress traders to build their accounts for longevity. TopStep has a different rule altogether. They just say you can take 50% of whatever profits you make in them 5 days. You don't necessarily need to take profits after 5 days. You could keep trading that account for months if you wanted to, and then take 50% of the profits then. You just need a minimum of 5 days. Fast track trading, the 5% of balance as a buffer, that is only once you get past the payout threshold or the target threshold. That then goes away, so it doesn't really affect. It's just 5% or until such time that you've built the buffer. Once it's past the buffer, that buffer stops, so you can take out that withdrawal. Of course, it's going to be aligned to their maximum payout thresholds available for each account step, but ultimately it does still give you that buffer. You've just got to use 5% of the total balance until you get past that 5%, which is not bad. Okay, so they're all of the differences. So how do we understand how we want to kind of move these things forward? So my favorite at the moment is TopStep and Elite, simply because the way I trade is quite tuned into the way prop firms work. And what do I mean by that? I typically take one trade a day. That's it. I don't try to trade too many days. If I show you my Elite Trader funding as an example, so you can see here on my Elite Trader funding, I'm on day 7, right? Today is day 8, and I've already made another 2K. But basically, you can see day 1, $2,000. Day 2, 2015. Day 3 was 2,161. Day 4 was a little bit less. Day 5 was 3,000. Day 6 was 2,000, and day 7 was 1,300. What I do typically is I depending on the account size, this is a 150k account. I will, because of the way in which Elite Trader Funding operates, I will have a 1 to 10 risk to reward ratio, right? And I'll use 6 contracts. And what that means is, if I pick up, say, TradingView, right, I'm looking for exhaustion. You can see this is the trade I made today, right, when we're in these outer regions, and this is where I got out, and it was nearly a $2,000 day, but it was just one trade. And so what I will do, just to show you, because I think it's an important takeaway, if I set to take profit, let's say I won $1,000 as my daily profit, and now I know I've got, what's my current account, 15,841. If I was to put 15,841, that's my current drawdown, right? For let's make that a little bit more, $1,000. That's my that is my trade, and my minimum day, because of the 23% rule, is $690 because I made just over $3,000 on a trade. But when I look at that, what I'm looking for specifically is real outreach, right? So I'm waiting. We're starting to hug this third standard deviation, which means we are really out of balance. And then what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, when price was down here, which is where I got in, where do I need to take the trade? I actually took the trade up to here. Was that 6 somewhere? Actually, it was somewhere around here. It was like 19. It was somewhere around there. If I hover over that line, you can see that little red dot there. That gives us the inclination of where it is. If I look at where my actual drawdown is for that, it's way beyond. You know, it's down to, and of course it can happen. 100% it can happen. But my trading style allows me to look, not just dive in like consolidation. I'm usually looking for reversals, right? But I'm looking for specific things to happen. Taking of liquidity. Here was R1, right, on a pivot point. We'd taken R1. We would also really extended, and I just fancied for such a small move, we'd get that reprival, maybe back to VWAP, which in this case it currently has, right? The important thing to note is not the trading strategy, but just this Elite Trader Funding and TopStep really allows me to trade in that way. Now, could I do that with Apex, I mean, I guess I could, right? Because I could use a 10-to-1 risk to reward, but the problem is their minimum now is 5-to-1. So that would mean if I wanted to make on a 50k account, going back to the stats, on a 50k account, right? Let's say my drawdown is, let's say this is a funded account, right? And I've got 2,500 worth of drawdown. Now, let's say I want to make $250. $250 is what I want to make. That would give me a risk to reward ratio of 1-to-10, right? I could determine what contract size that needs to be to make that expand, be higher or lower. So as an example, going back to the strategy here, you know, let's say, and you're allowed 10 contracts on a what you would call it, a 50k account, right? So let's say, you know, the stop loss here, let's say it's just one contract. So I want to make $250 a day, and 2,500 is my minimum, right? So that's, I still, even with these stats, for me, still gives me an ability to be able to trade on that. The problem is that's just one contract. If I go 3 contracts, obviously I get a lot tighter with my take profit, but not as much with the drawdown, right? Now, obviously, remember, drawdown is trailing as well, which doesn't really help if you go a little bit in profit and then start to come down, because this is going to start to decrease. But because it's only 5-to-1, realistically, it's half of this, right? Which is to say, 1,750. Theoretically, that is now my minimum because of the way the rules work. So you can see already, whilst that's still absolutely an achievable thing, and I would still back myself to do that, realistically, I have less wiggle room to stick within their rules and not get denied a payout. That just gives me a lot less than what I would with, say, 6 contracts, wanting to make $1,000 and having, you know, what is 5? I think it's $6,000 is the trade and drawdown. It's not even a trade and drawdown, it's end of day drawdown with Elite, and that's the thing I haven't even mentioned actually in the information. Some of these have trade and drawdown, some of these have end of day drawdowns. The end of day drawdown, that gives me, that's that buffer. If I wanted to make $1,000 a day, realistically, if I only wanted to start, I might only think, well, do you know what, it's a 150k account, I'll just make $500 a day. Yes, it's 6 contracts, but I've got this much room to breathe before my account goes dry and I get taken down for such a small move. So usually, you know, look at all of this, you've got no problem making $1,000 or $500 a day, even in these circumstances. Obviously, the market has different characters. You've got to understand what those characters are. Conversely to this, we also have TopStep. But what's the big drawdown for TopStep? It's the daily loss limit, right? The daily loss limit is $1,000. So on a 50k account, daily loss limit forces me to only trade there, and I can only start, because of the scaling plan, with 2 contracts. So if I want to make $250 there and bring that's my $1,000 there. Again, it's not an awful lot of wiggle room, right? That looks on the surface like an easy trade, but it's not. And so that's why, for me, my primary firm to use is Elite, because Elite gives me all of the wiggle room that I need to grow my account. And they actually, because of the minimum trading day, they actually enhance you to keep trading more. I know that doesn't sound ideal, but look, I'm trading once and I'm still managing to stay within their rules, right? That's actually forcing me to trade a little bit bigger size, still within the confines of what I'm trying to trade with, while still giving myself breathing space. And so I would say, for me personally, the best firm that I like is Elite Trader Funding, because if you're like me and you like to trade with size, then as you grow the account, and you might not trade in this style, this is just the way I trade, but I usually back myself to be able to pick one trade, and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. I'm not diving in at any specific area. I'm waiting for a specific thing to happen, a taking of liquidity, really extended period, and then I'm really interested in getting in because I'm only waiting for a small move. So where I am currently at now, and I usually trade 6 contracts, like I said to you before, I'm looking for somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000. So let's just say $1,000 just to keep it nice and easy. And I've got a lot of wiggle room below me, right? I've got 15k or 15,600. You know, I back myself to be able to most days, if not all, because it only takes one to fail, right? I mean, I could put a stop loss much less down the road, or, you know, actually bring it up here, but that reduces me wiggle room. What I'm usually looking for is them extended periods. So on the face of it, as I would kind of phrase it, I would say my number one trading firm right now is Elite. They also allow you to have 20 accounts. I think second is TopStep, because TopStep, again, reduction in days. You know, I'm going to go back to the actual thing. It's only 5 trading days. You can only take 50% of your profits, so there is a restriction on that. I think this is why, in my opinion, like Elite. So what is the minimum drawdown on that? So I've basically anything above 5k plus $100 I can take. Well, I'm at 13,000. Well, I'm actually at 15,600. So I'm going to be taking $2,700 as the minimum, or the maximum, sorry, I can take. But I'm still way above my drawdown, and I'm going to keep trading this way, right? Because that just works for me. Third on the list would be Apex, just because of the price. And the fact that they've kind of loosened the rules a little bit, but not so much so in the sense that, yes, it's only 8 minimum trading days, but there are things now like the buffer and stuff like that's been added in. But still, they are the budget cost prop firm to go with, right? So it's not a bad thing. I just think they are trying to change the way in which they're perceived in the market, and I you know, we wish them well, right? And then finally, fast track trading. I just think the cost is too prohibitive. Generally, if you back yourself and you pass evaluations, I mean, you know, you got TopStep 298 all in, Elite Trader Funding 309 all in, and then Apex 135 all in. Fast track trading, you're paying that premium to go straight into where they are as the straight into that kind of simulated funding environment. So, you know, if you've got money, that might be your option, but just remember you've only got a 20% minimum consistency rule, which is not that great to grow the account and scale it. So I've scaled this Elite in, well, it's 8 days, and in 8 days I'm now at just over 15k. I couldn't do that with fast track because of the consistency rule. So there you have it, folks. There's the 4 funded accounts. I've got an affiliate link for both Apex and Elite. Should you want it, they will be in the description. Not that you need to do it, of course. It just helps me out if you found any value in this. And that being said, if there's any questions, anything you want to ask, feel free to reach out. I have a Discord server as well. Link will be in the description for that. And on that basis, I'll see you guys in the next one.